Hello and welcome to another episode of We Should Code. Today we're going to be discussing the differences between an array and an array list. So just to go back over our previous episode, what is an array? Okay, so arrays allow you to store related data together, but also to keep them in order so that you can recall the elements within different parts of your program. Okay. Again, you can create an array as a variable, but you also can store variables within an array. And here we have an array that represents the countries. Okay. So you have your indices numbering between 0 and 4, so 5 indices in total. But again, using zero order, we start with 0. Okay. Now, further on what an array is, arrays can store either strings, and that's a word, name, noun, etc., or integers, numbers. Okay, it is possible to access any element within an array randomly. Okay, if you define an array using a variable name, you're able to store information, either strings or integers, with something in common together and reliably access them. That's what an array is. Okay. Here we have an example again of a variable for an array. Represent array here, and then we have our indices of a single call out for number 2. In this case, it will return United States. And again, a mention of zero-based indexing, where you're starting with the number 0 as opposed to 1. Okay. So, additionally, some funny things about arrays. Arrays have a fixed data type as well as a fixed size, and that determines the amount of memory reserved for an array. Depending on the language, sometimes you can have dynamic arrays. Okay, you can add or remove parts of an array using insertion or deletion, but this can be a downside, as it can mean you can lose track of your index numbers. Okay, it is possible to have an array of an array or arrays of arrays, which are known as multidimensional arrays. Here we have an example of an array again. You have your declaration of a public class. You have your static main declaration. Then you have your code to input for an array of things, which you have your indices of house, dog, and bird. And then you have code so that you can display these within your console log. And in this case, dog will be displayed on the screen, okay, because that's indices number 1. Again, this is indices number 0. Okay, so what is an array list? Okay, so similar to arrays, an array list is considered a dynamic array. Okay, where you can actively add and remove elements of an array in real time. Okay, arrays, again, depending on the language, will not allow for changes in size, okay, in the same way that an array list will. Okay, some additional major differences are that array lists, because they change in size, may also cause changes in the memory size, okay, depending on whether an element is added or removed. So you either will increase your memory requirement or decrease your memory requirement, whether you add or remove elements of an array or array list. Okay. Array lists also tend to be more complex to implement. See the following example of comparisons between an array and an array list. We'll get through that in a second. Finally, array lists support object entries and tend to not support primitive data types such as strings, integers, booleans, undefined, and null values. Okay. So here is our comparison between an array and an array list. Okay, so here we have our declaration of a public class again. You have your array example here as a string with our declaration of an array variable, and then we have our names here: John, Billy, Simon, and then we also have the code to display those names. In this case, we're going to display Billy out to the screen. Okay, to show what a array list will look like, or an array list will look like, we have an array list as a string. We have our declaration of the variable there for the array list, and then we have the declaration of adding parts to the array list. Okay, so remember, it's dynamic, so you're going to see an array list and you're going to see the code to either add or remove parts of your your elements within that array list. Okay, so here we're going to add fishing, speedboat, tugboat as boats to again represent similar items within the array list, and then we can print out our full list of those boats that we've now added to the array list. Okay. As always, please like and subscribe to our channel for more content. Jets has some new friends now, but he always wants more. So